Welcome to Botanical Trails Through the Juniper Forest. I'm your host, Brian Heater. Each week, I'll have a different guest join me to explore a pair of interesting gins. We'll chat a little bit about the gin and the distilleries, throw in a bit of trivia, hopefully laugh a bit, and then we'll go off the beaten path. Although I say that this is a podcast about gin, really this is just an excuse for me to spend time with my friends. But that'll just be our secret. Okay, let's start exploring. My guest today is Rishi Singh from Rishi's International Beverage here in Grand Rapids. Rishi, thanks you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I am excited also for two reasons. So this is, I calculated today, the 30th episode that I've done of the podcast. And you're the first sort of minor celebrity that I've had on. It's always been my friends and family, but I was recently at, a buddy's wedding. Mentioned that you and I had been talking about you coming as a guest, and you'd be surprised like how many people like in town know you and were surprised to hear you're coming on. So thanks a bunch. We are trying two gins from the UK today. The first one is a Scottish gin that you recommended, and then the second one will be a gin from England,
which I haven't even had yet.
So I was excited to stumble across it, and we'll do that one. So let me introduce the first gin. We'll give it a little sip, and then we can chat a bit. So this is a gin from Scotland that you recommended called Charing Cross. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's a London dry. It is produced in Scotland, and it's described as a beautifully balanced, juniper-rich gin with intriguing notes of citrus and spice. So feel free to just try that little sipper. Cheers. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, great bouquet. I mean, we got the juniper and spice kind of right on the bouquet.
It's got good flavor.
A great flavor. And I think it just continues to intensify on the back of your palate as well. Gives you that juniper, gives you that spice, that coriander, almost that citrus peel. I like it.
Yeah, no, me too. And then the gin and tonics I made are with the gin and then Fever Tree Mediterranean tonic. So this gin is inspired by the renowned London, Midland, and Scottish Railway Company, which linked the famous Charing Cross station in London as well as the Charing Cross station in Glasgow. So, and they celebrate this link by producing this classic London dry style of gin. I tried to look it up. It looks like it is part of a company, the distiller, that does multiple.
They do a lot of bottlings.
Yeah, so it's called Quality Spirits International. They're a wholly owned subsidiary of the largest independent Scotch whiskey company and the number one private label Scotch supplier. So they have over 30 years of experience producing private label services. They're based in the heart of Scotland, and they do Scotch blends, single malts, Irish whiskey, gin, and bourbon. So I don't know if you carry other things from them. Place.
Yeah, they're pretty big conglomerate of a lot of different stuff. But I find what they do really well is produce stuff where the quality is pretty high standards, but the prices are fairly reasonable.
Yeah.
And that can be hard to find in this climate where it feels like anything that gets even semi-popular just seems to skyrocket in price, especially with brown spirits.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, gins have really taken off. I think in the last 5-6 years, I think COVID just catapulted them into a whole different level. And we've seen our gin, not only the selection grow, but also the consumer excitement kind of grow around it as well.
No, it was totally that way for me. And in fact, so my the very first guest I had on, my buddy Jerry, he introduced me to Monkey 47, and that really just opened things up for me to I was like, wow, a gin can be this. Yeah. And then you're right, during COVID, since I couldn't meet my friends and enjoy the international or the intellectual tavern life, I was like, well, let me try something else. It definitely just kind of set me off on this gin path. Now, if Jerry kind of opened the door, you have completely expanded my palate. So I took a look today of the today's episode 30, but two of the episodes when my friends Molly and Kelly come on, we do wine.
Sure.
So I've done 28 episodes, so that's 56 gins that I've done. So I went through today. Would you like to hazard a guess at how many gins that you've recommended I've had on the show, including today's?
6.
Very close, 7. So you were right.
Pretty close,
today's the 7th. No, you're right. So it was, the first one was Dingle. That
Irish gin.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Alchemist,
Yep.
the Spanish gin.
Yep. That's really unique.
Oh, it's so good.
Super unique.
So good. The Glendalough, their rose version.
Which is great for the summer.
Gold Grail from Portugal.
Yep. Cocktail gin.
And then my last episode, you had both recommendations, Lusa and the T-Smith, 2 Scottish gins.
Oh, man.
And then today,
those are so good, too, yeah.
Charing Cross.
But they're also different.
They are, which is great. So you've been responsible for over 12% of the gins that I've had on the show. And before I did this, you also had, since I wasn't doing this, I didn't track it, but you, like, one of the first times I came in, you recommended, it was like a special one-off, maybe you had, it was from South Africa, if I remember correctly.
We've had a few different ones. South Africa's been doing some amazing. We had one called Musgrave. And
that was it.
That was one of the best gins I've ever had.
That was it.
And then we were able to get maybe a handful of cases from our supplier, and then it kind of just dried right up, and I haven't been able to find it ever since.
Yeah, I haven't seen it before, but that was a really taste. Like, really, that ever came back, I would totally have that on the show. So
let's try it with the gin and tonic. And neat, it was fantastic.
Yeah, it was very very tasty.
Oh, there it is. That really it almost no alcohol burn, no ethanol burn, no. It's just really well integrated. It's just a perfectly refreshing.
Yeah, it's good.
And it's got some weight to it.
Yeah, no, it's a good, tasty gin. And very much being a London Dry, kind of just, a little
straightforward. Yeah, for sure.
Kind of get what you think you're going to get out of it. So how long have you owned your beverage shop there?
Oh boy, it's been 28, almost 29 years now.
Wow. Okay.
So it's been a long journey. I went to school for as a pre-med and just, kind of fell in love with wine halfway through that journey. So I kind of dropped out, and the goal was to start a bottle shop focused on wine.
Okay.
And this was in the infancy of Grand Rapids beer scene, where Founders was just kind of chugging along, stumbling, thriving, then stumbling. And it was so easy to kind of get into the beer. The beer paid our bills, right?
Yeah.
And wine was a passion, still is. Actually, wine is probably my biggest passion still. So, what started out as a wine bottle shop really turned into a beer bottle shop just because our revenues came from beer, and a lot of them still do. But over time, as time evolved, I was able to kind of take the revenues from the beer and buy inventory of the wine. Wine it's hard to run a bottle shop.
Okay.
Because the inventory costs are so high. I mean, to sell a few bottles of wine, you have to have thousands of bottles. So it's as a small business, being in the wine business is it's a long-term investment. So usually, that's how I kind of started, was with wine, and I realized quickly that this is not going to be a profitable venture. So then we really expanded our craft beer portfolio, and that really took off. And so we kind of evolved from beer. Liquor really took off for us as well, as niche brands. Cocktailing became popular in the early 2000s and really shot up during COVID. But it's been a heck of a journey. 28 years. I feel like there are days where I come to work and I feel like it's my first day. I still get excited.
Well, that's good. Have you been in that same location on 28th Street?
No, we've been there almost 11 years now.
Okay.
And we were around the corner for about 17 years.
Oh, okay.
On East
so pretty
Paris,
close.
so
okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Long time.
Yeah. So, and then out of your gin portfolio, what are your most popular gins, would you say?
Probably Hendrick's is still, okay. Yeah. It used to be a Bombay, Tanqueray, some of the lower end gins, and I think you've seen people kind of drinking a little bit more premium. And that's really taken place in the last 5 to 7 years, I would say.
Okay.
And that's across the board. I think the consumer is drinking better, and maybe not quite as much. At least our consumer.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that in wine, we're seeing that in bourbon, we're seeing that in gin especially, where the average sale continues to go up, but the quantity continues to kind of either stay stable or grow down.
Okay.
So by that I mean if the consumer was drinking, if the same guy was drinking a $10 case of wine and he was drinking that once a month, he's now drinking a $20 case of wine, but instead of 30 days, it takes him 35, 40 days.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
We're seeing a premiumization across the board. And I think that is because the quality has continued to go up. Prices have continued to, it's a competitive market, stay kind of the same for the major category items. Obviously, if things get popular, that drives up the price a little bit. But it's been fun to see people looking for quality over quantity over the last several years. It's been fun. It's fun for me. It's fun for bottle shops because then we get to recommend you things we've discovered versus what big, highly marketed brands want to more or less force down your throat.
Sure.
With the vehicle of advertising.
So for Hendrix, has it been primarily like their maiden ship, their main one, or have their
because it's
offshoots
just
started to be popular?
They all are, but that one just because it's in a lot of bars, it's in a lot of places, it just seems to kind of catch on. But a lot of these niche gins are the ones that we have such a fun time selling because it's so, everyone has their own palate, and the goal of a bottle shop is to listen to what you're looking for and then proceed with the recommendation.
Yeah. So it must be nice when you get a lot of like frequent customers come in. You get to learn their palate.
100%.
You get to learn like what you wanna, what you think they'll enjoy. That's got to be, I think, that's one part of the job.
That's 90% of the job is to listen, and then first you have to educate yourself.
Yeah.
And then once you educate yourself, then it's fun to impart that knowledge or that experience with someone that's also looking to engage in that arena. That's the most fun part of my job, is turning people on to something that made my evening better or made my moment with someone else more enjoyable.
Yeah. I tried Hendrix. I mean, I've had it before forever, but Fever Tree now has that cucumber infused.
So refreshing.
Oh, yeah. So it complements.
Yeah, I like that by
so
itself
well.
sometimes in the shop because it's just so refreshing.
Yeah. I do have to say their tonics across the board are pretty. They mix and match really well with a wide variety of gins, which is nice. So, and then San
makes a big
Pellegrino,
difference.
Yeah, and then
a
San
good tonic can make
it.
Yeah, and like when people upgrade from like a Canada Dry to Fever Tree, it's a game changer.
Oh, for sure.
It's like I always tell people, it's like going from VHS to Blu-ray. Like it's that big of a difference.
Oh yeah,
and
I think you can take a nice gin, and you get a terrible tonic, and it ruins it. And you can take like an average gin.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, and it just makes it.
It's the same thing with if you've noticed with Manhattans, right? I can't tell you how many times people will buy an absolutely stellar bottle of bourbon and like an $8 vermouth, and I can't wrap my head around it. It's like, good vermouth is 90% of the flavor in a Manhattan, and you're choosing to upgrade your bourbon and downgrade your vermouth, and it's so when you tell and educate people that, hey, maybe downgrade your bourbon a little bit and upgrade your vermouth and see how big of a difference it makes, and they come back and they go, oh man, I've been doing this wrong this whole time. it's the same thing with tonics. So
yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah, San Pellegrino had two. Well, they still have the one. Well, at least I could order it still. The Oakwood, which I don't use a lot, but there are a couple of gins. It just goes
really well with that. I haven't had that yet. I'll have to look for that.
And then they used to have like just the best citrus gin, but they either stopped making it or I don't know I can't find it anywhere.
I don't think I've seen that either.
Yeah, their citrus gin was
fantastic.
Oh yeah, it was great, especially with like any sort of citrus infused, like their citrus tonic and like Malfi, their lemon infused. Oh, just like
Malfi's
such
so good. Yeah, that's a summer crusher. Before you know it, the bottle's gone.
Yes,
you can get in trouble with that.
Yeah. So what would you say are some of like more recently some of the favorite new gins you've had come in that you've really enjoyed?
Yeah, this summer I really enjoyed one. Actually, I enjoyed Dingle a lot.
Okay, yeah.
Escape Grace from New Zealand.
Yeah, so good.
Has been so much fun. couple of the local producers are doing a really nice job. Petoskey Stone Gin is really good. They have it has lavender as one of the botanicals.
Okay.
And it's so the bouquet on that just makes you feel like you're on vacation on a Caribbean island. So that one I really enjoy. Bohane from Ireland, which I think you've had.
No, but I'm going to get that one. We were talking about it. Yeah, that's another fun one. I went with the Lusa instead of
instead of that one. Yeah, and that's another fun one. It definitely is a mood thing for me. And sometimes I want that real juniper forward style of a London Dry. Sometimes I just want that fruity style of Amalfi. And I think that's what makes gin so versatile.
Yeah.
That it just depends on your mood.
Yeah, I especially think, like you said, like most people when they go into bars and they think of gin, they think of
Tanqueray,
Bombay, or even like Hendrix. But those are like, you see those like everywhere. Correct. But if you can introduce them and have them try like something different, like
it's a rabbit hole. And then you get really excited about it. It's a whole different world of gins out there. And it's amazing how we're finally starting to see it here, but in Europe, gins have been popular for so long.
Yeah.
They really made a resurgence over the last 20 years, and now we're starting to see a little bit of that come stateside, and it's fun. It's fun to explore it. And our distributors have been doing a good job of kind of staying up with the trends and bringing a lot of new ones in.
Yeah, earlier this year, I discovered this app called Ginventory, and someone was like, well, how long could you do like something like this? I was like, take a ballpark guess at how many gins show up on this app. And they're like, I don't know, like 400. And I'm like, no, it's like 7,500.
Oh my God.
And I'll put gins in there that aren't even there, like in there yet. So there's like, I don't know how many more that aren't even. Yeah, there's, Well,
that amazes me. I wouldn't have guessed that many either.
Yeah. But like here in Michigan, like, like you were saying, like 15, 20 years ago, we had that craft beer craze. And then, I don't know, it was probably 10-ish years ago, they changed the laws in Michigan and it made it easier to start a distillery. And now we're sort of seeing that, come up.
The seeds that we planted are now bearing the fruit. We're bearing the fruits here often. We've got some amazing distilleries now.
Yeah.
In Michigan that are doing world-class products. Long Road does an incredible job. Eastern Kill locally does a really nice job. So I think we're in a good spot in Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
For beer, liquor, and wine.
Yeah, definitely. It's so nice having both of them like in our backyard.
For sure. And they do great cocktails. I mean, it's every time I've been there, it's been a world-class experience. And I get to try a different cocktail that I maybe wouldn't want to take the time to make at home or wouldn't have the time to make at home. And I think that's the fun part about what the local community, whether it's local distillers or local bottle shops, that kind of bring and add to the vibrancy of the community in terms of being stewards of educating them on something fun, new, and exciting.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So, well, let's do our first round of trivia. And we decided that I would ask you the first question. So, all right. This is a question about bootlegging and prohibition. So, prohibition took effect in the U.S. on June 30th, 1919. What was the next day, July 1st, known as? It's multiple choice. Your questions, or your potential answers are A, July the Worst, B, P-Day, C, Sober Sunday, or D, the Thirsty First. So, and I'll read the question for you again. It's Prohibition took effect in the U.S. on June 30th, 1919. What was the next day, July 1st, known as?
Oh, man. What was the choices again?
Yep. A is July the Worst.
Yep.
B is P-Day. C is Sober Sunday.
Man, July the Worst.
D is the Thirsty First.
July the Worst.
That would have been the best one, but it's actually the Thirsty First.
Thirsty First?
Yeah.
Because you're thirsty.
Now
You haven't had anything.
And now
sense.
You can't get it anymore. Yeah. But yeah. So, well, awesome. All right. Well, let's take a little break and we'll get the next one lined up.
Perfect.
All right. We are back. Our second gin today is going to be from a distillery that's been on the show twice before, Silent Pool Distillers, but we've never had a chance to try one of their own gins. I was in Madison, Wisconsin in June for my niece Gemma's graduation, and I was at one of the shops there. It was either a local store or their Total Wine that was right by my hotel. but I stumbled upon a bottle from Silent Pool, and I'm like, I got to snag that.
Yeah, for sure.
I tried a little bit. I was like, that's pretty tasty, and I knew that you were maybe coming on the show, so I thought I'd save this one for you. So try that Silent Pool.
Cheers. Oh man, instantly so many more things going on the just the bouquet instead of just straight juniper and citrus. A little bit of spice, a little bit more floral notes, but definitely that juniper.
Yeah. So with the last one, I couldn't find out like how many botanicals were in this one.
Sure.
This one has 24.
You can tell that there's a very complex nose.
Yeah.
A lot going on there.
It's a different, definitely a different flavor profile.
Oh, this is delicious. This is why I love gin, because I think the first one, though it's good as a dry martini, or an extra dry martini, I would enjoy that. This, I think just on the rocks.
Yeah.
Would be fantastic.
Yeah, because it doesn't burn going down, but it's got a lot of interesting flavor to it. So I'll just talk about the gin real quick. It's described as a classic gin at heart. It is full-bodied and fresh, with depth, clarity, and above all flavor. It's produced with 24 botanicals to give it a rich and clean juniper-driven spirit with, as you had mentioned, floral layers of lavender and chamomile. There's also fresh notes of citrus and kaffir lime.
Kaffir lime, yeah.
Yeah, kaffir lime, which are grounded with the subtle sweetness of local honey, creating a well-balanced gin. This gin came out in 2015. It looks like they have kind of 5 gins with their own Silent Pool brand, and then they had a 6th one that just came out that I saw when I was on their website today. And again, real quick, because I know I've talked about the distillery before, but it was started in 2013 by a group of friends. It's located in Surrey Hills. It is on the Duke of Northumberland's Albury estate, and they took over a group of dilapidated farm buildings on the banks of the legendary and mystical Silent Pool, hence the name. And they use a bunch of just locally sourced ingredients for making their stuff. And then they also, the reason it's been on before is they also do private label. And so,
right on. Okay.
Yeah. And so a buddy of mine, Greg, he and his son last year for spring break went over to catch a couple EPL games. And when Greg was there, he bought some gins to come back, and he came on the show, and it ended up 2 of them were
made by Silent Pool.
By Silent Pool in combination with this other company.
Sure.
One was called Marrakesh Gin, and the other was California Gin. And they were both pretty tasty.
For sure.
But this is their own
signature, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's
delicious.
I think it's real tasty.
Yeah.
So now what we have to do, I'm assuming, is petition Michigan so we can get it on the
our
list.
shelves, yeah, for sure.
Right, because don't they have to get, how does that work?
It's interesting because most people assume that the state actually is authority on what comes in and what doesn't. And that's not true. The state just wants their markup. It's the distributors that control what comes in and what doesn't. The state simply wants your markup. You want to bring in 10,000 gins, you want to bring in 10 gins, they can't be bothered, right? They're not in the business of limiting availability. If anything, I think over the last 15, 20 years, I think they've done a great job as administrators in kind of pushing the distributors to have kind of a deeper portfolio.
Okay.
Now, on the distribution side, because we're state controlled, it's in the distributor's best interest to have a smaller book and higher volume because it's more profitable for them.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because they're not picking as many different SKUs.
Yep.
So by nature, if you just let one, because we're a 3-tier system, if you let just one tier kind of take control, you're going to have kind of a situation where they're going to do what's most profitable and easiest for them. So that's when the state will sometimes have to step in and say, guys, like Irish whiskey portfolio's kind of trash. Like we've got to step this up a little bit. Or, gins are lacking. You need to bring in more. So I think it's a hybrid system where, yes, we're state controlled, but the distributors really have a large say in what comes in and what doesn't. And so does a consumer, right? Because if, at the end of the day, because the distribution side of things is a private enterprise, if they see that gins are taking off or bourbons are taking off or whatever category, there's an incentive, a financial incentive in there for them to bring in new stuff, because you're at least going to be able to sell that initial pallet. There's over 4,000 licenses in the state of Michigan. So, but just by that very virtue, if even half of them brought in your product, you've already sold 2,000 bottles. So okay. It's a pretty neat system. I love it and I hate it and all at once. But it's probably the best I've seen out there.
Okay. So when I also was in Madison on that trip in June, I came across, it's called Woodmarks. It's like a local grocery store chain over there. But they had a couple of gins delicious. From Edinburgh.
Yeah.
That I had not seen before. So I liked this, like the classic Edinburgh.
Which is good, yeah.
It was the first, the first one I did on Scottish gins. Well, they have this other one, and I'll show you the bottle before you leave today. But they had one called Seaside.
Okay.
It's more
saline driven,
it's just super tasty. Yeah. And then another one that I'm gonna do. They had a Navy Strength one that I hadn't seen, and so I'm gonna do it. And then there should be 8 on there. There's 8. You gave the Navy Strength from
Vigilant.
Yes,
which is
that's going to be coming on. Yeah, so you've got 8 on there, so that percentage goes up. But I'll show you. So maybe your Edinburgh distributor, we could get him to send us a couple of those Seaside
that we can't get.
It's so tasty. So it's really good.
This was great in a gin and tonic.
Yeah,
this is definitely a better gin and tonic drink. Gin. Whereas I think the first one that we tasted would probably be a better martini gin. Not that there's anything wrong with a gin and tonic.
No, but the other one was just more of a kind of a straight classic, like
juniper forward.
Yeah, and this one, it's just got a lot of different things going on.
Agreed.
And again, I think the Mediterranean just complements it really, really
Perfect.
well.
Goes so well with it, yeah.
So your shop, you sell a bunch of different stuff. What is it? So is it wine, beer, spirits? Like what's kind of your bigger sellers?
Wine definitely. It used to be that beer kind of funded the operations. Liquor brought people in because liquor's very low margin. And wine was a passion. And now I would say wine funds the store.
Okay.
And keeps the beer in business. And liquor still is the same thing. It just brings people in.
Okay.
So margins are really, it's a very low margin industry. So it's all about volume. But wine for me is, like I said, it's what I got into the industry. It's still to this day why I like coming to work. Liquor's fun, beer's fun too, but I think for me sometimes I get not nervous, but maybe overwhelmed sometimes by beer.
Yeah.
Even though wine is a little bit more sprawling and more in depth, because I enjoy that side so much. I've got 2 kids, so I'll go home. When I get home, I'll spend some time with the kids. We'll eat dinner. We'll watch a TV show. But then I would say from 11 p.m. till about 2 a.m. I read.
Okay.
I read a lot.
Yeah.
And it's all industry publications. Like, what does this chateau grow? And what's their second label? Who they're situated next to? Why is this one $1,000 and this one is $80? Who made this wine? When did that winemaker make it? When did he go to this? To me, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
That as American consumers, we're so driven on buying wines that are heavily advertised that we don't realize that 63% of that cost of that bottle is advertising. So when you buy a Veuve Clicquot or a Kendall Jackson or, some of these grocery store brands, if you're spending $6.30 of that is going towards marketing. It's not going to the grower. It's not going to anyone else.
Wow. So
the fun part of bottle shops, and it's always been true and will continue to be true, is to find smaller estates where 90% of what you're paying is for what's in the bottle. You're obviously going to have that 10%, whether it's a little bit of marketing, packaging, design. But our goal is to find you something where if you're paying for a $20 bottle of wine, to me, it should drink like a $25, $30 bottle of wine. Yeah. That's otherwise, what's the point of difference between going to a bottle shop and going to a chain store? There has to be something. And that's kind of the way I've approached certainly the wine side of things, because I think you can see the difference more clearly and more quantitatively. Whereas I think you can see that in liquor too, but liquor is mostly controlled by the state. So it's hard to, a $15 gin is a $15 gin, a $30 gin it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think with wine, you see that pronounced more. Like you could bring me a killer $25 wine from the grocery store. My job would be to find you a $15 one that drinks just as good as that. And I think so that part has changed over time, where wine has kind of taken over, and it's a category that continues to grow for us. Even though overall, the last 2 years, wine has seen a negative growth.
Oh, really?
4 to 7%.
Okay.
The last couple of years you've seen in wine, but for us, it's kind of been it's been trending up, and I think that speaks to any industry that you're in. If you're passionate about it, generally you will find niches in that, and our niche has always been that $20 to $50 price point, and we really hit that hard. That doesn't mean that there isn't $1,000 wines on the shelves, but as someone that enjoys wine every day, I can't afford to drink $1,000 wine every day.
Business isn't going that
well. No way. And I don't know if even if I had $1 billion in my pocket, I don't know if I would buy a $1,000 bottle of wine, just because there's so many good ones with so much more fascinating stories in that $20 to $50 range that I don't know if I've enjoyed $1,000 wines. I just don't know if they're end all be all.
Yeah. Do you have a preference with wine when it comes to like whites or reds, or?
It depends on the mood. I mean, okay. I again, like, you could serve me a red, rich, full-bodied red on a 95 and humid degree day, and I'd still be happy. So I think definitely reds I gravitate towards more. But I love French whites.
Okay.
Unoaked, crisp, clean Chablis or Burgundies or Aligotes, or just fun, vibrant French whites. I love New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs. I like Loire Valley whites. I like. I'm starting to get more into white Bordeaux. I'm kind of learning my way through them. That's been a little bit more of a steep learning curve because it comes with a higher price tag as well. So my journey's been a little slow in that area, and I find that reps are reluctant to pull samples of things they don't sell a lot of.
Oh, okay.
Right. So if I'm going to sample a $50 white Bordeaux, but I only have it in me to sell a case of it a month, what's their incentive to pull a sample of that when their return on investment is a 12-bottle sale, right? So I think it's then I have to learn that on my own then. I mean, that investment is done on the self, and that's fine. Just a slow evolution. And I grow, with our customers. So I find that as I learn more and I can break down those barriers of entry for other people where they might not be willing to try a Sancerre or a French white wine because they can't, unlike California, where we write the name of the grape on the bottle, it's mostly regions in other countries, right? Whether it's Burgundy, or you just have to know that Burgundy produces these three varietals. And if it's white, it's probably a Chardonnay or Aligote. If it's red, it's a Pinot Noir. And so it's just breaking down those barriers with education, one bottle at a time.
Yeah. And
not every time do I have something that I like. Sometimes you'll taste 50 wines and not bring any of them in. Because the goal is, will it replace something in that price point that's already on the shelf? And the answer is no. Then why am I, for the sake of just adding new labels to my shelf, which is what generally grocery stores will do, what's the point? Right? So if I have a grocery store and there's 35 labels, it's ironic because of those 35 labels, there's 4 wineries that have bottled those 35 labels. So, yeah, you have 35 different wines, but it's really 5 different wines on your shelf with different labels.
Yeah, just labels on them? Yeah. 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 No, when it comes to wine for me, it's red is definitely, for me, it's what I prefer. But it's funny you mentioned French whites, because back in 2019, my best friend Jim and I got to go to France and in Paris. He introduced me to a couple whites that are somewhere in my notes on my phone. But I was like, oh, you could drink I could drink
for
that,
sure.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely red is, when it comes to wine, red is for me. But the same type of thing, like on gin, sometimes I'll just kind of take just a little flyer on it. I'm like, well, let me just check this out, see how it is. And, it's kind of...
It's your own personal journey.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's a great thing about our industry is like, sometimes there are ratings. Sometimes, like as a merchant, I'll use ratings to sell a product, whether it's, wine and spirits competition that's got a gold medal, But even then, it's someone's palate that gave it a gold medal. If you don't agree with that palate, then it might not even be a bronze medal. So that's why I have to tell people, like, just because this is expensive and is rated really high, doesn't mean this is the best fit for you. because if I'm listening to what you're saying, you want floral and elegant, and this is juniper and rich. Yes, it's expensive and it's rated higher, but like this, it's not. You're not gonna like it as much. It's irrelevant in this conversation.
That's going to taste like Christmas. Which, if you like London Dry Juniper Ford, you'll really like that.
But that's not what you told me. So, and that's the thing is like going back to the listening part is really, really important. And you have to, that's how I like to train my staff. And it's harder to find people now more than ever that listen. They just want to jam down your throat what they want to sell you. And that art is kind of faltering. And that's the thing I like about a bottle shop. I don't get out of the store that often, but even if I'm going to a nice restaurant, I want to be sold. Because there's an art to that. Convince me why I should order this glass of wine, or why I should order this bottle of wine. And I find some of the greatest things I've ever encountered have been on suggestions from servers or bartenders that know what they're doing. And I like putting my faith in that. And I think now you're starting to see that kind of go away. Most people don't take the time to educate themselves on their trade. They're only selling what corporate wants you to sell. Hey, this is a great gin. Try this. Well, why? Oh, it's just really good. Well, okay, but like, convince me a little bit more why I should buy it. But I think the people that still practice that trade will always have a niche.
Yeah.
And I hope that doesn't go extinct with online and delivery services and things where you don't have that human interaction anymore and you're just relying on tasting notes. Tasting notes are great, but it's nice to have someone's palate who you align with kind of take you deeper into that realm. And that's what I love doing. No,
well, listen, as a customer of yours, it's great. One of my favorite things the past couple of years, I've come in like a week before Christmas, and I'll come in, I'll be like, okay, what's a recommendation? And I'll ask you for a gin I've not tried before. And you'll typically pull like 3 or 4 off the shelf. We'll talk through them. And that, for me, has turned into, the past 2 years, Alchemist, and then Tea House.
Oh, so good.
And so I can't wait till see what we pick this upcoming December. Yeah. It's just...
They're varying degrees of good, but some are memorable.
Yeah.
And that's what sets them apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you.
No, that's awesome. Well, you do a great job with that.
Thank you.
So, well, let's do the second round of trivia, and you can ask me.
All right. In order to survive during Prohibition, Anheuser-Busch and Yuengling reworked their breweries to make what? Here's the choices.
Okay.
Ice cream, root beer, ceramics, or motor oil.
It is. So I have found with these trivia questions, it's always the most...
The one you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, offbeat one. So I want to say motor oil, but I'm going to guess root beer.
It was actually ice cream.
Really? Oh, I would not guess that at all.
How would you get ice cream from
a distillery?
Wheat, barley, and distillate.
That's not even... Wow. All right.
But there you go.
Well,
I didn't know that
I definitely
either.
would have guessed that one at all. So, all right. Well, now we'll go to my favorite part of the show, which is Off the Beaten Path.
Yeah.
So I will go first, and I was kind of debating what I wanted to do because I sort of have shot myself in the foot with this because I love doing this, but what I've discovered is my guests, although I've had a couple of guests come on twice, but they just need to come up with one selection, and now I'm having to take a list of like, what have I recommended and what do I have coming up? So I love movies though, and I love Wes Anderson films. Okay. And so originally my selection was going to be his very first movie, which is called Bottle Rocket.
Okay.
Which is a little bit different. It's well done. It's got, Owen Wilson and Luke Wilson and James Caan. But I was thinking about it, I was like, that movie's good, but it's not like great in my opinion. Like it sets up for his like other films, and I love his movies. So, but I did decide to go with one of his films, and for me, it's Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you like his movies.
I'm familiar with that one, yeah.
So he's done like Rushmore and Royal Tenenbaums.
For sure.
So Fantastic Mr. Fox came out in 2009, and it is a stop motion animation. They use puppets.
Okay.
And it is based off of a book written by Roald Dahl. So, and basically it is about this fox who, he was always like stealing chickens from people, stuff like that. His wife becomes pregnant, so he tries to settle down, just become a good father and family man. He moves them into this new house, but he ends up being by these 3 farmers, and he sort of can't help himself, and he wants to do like one more raid. So he does it, but he just like ticks off these 3 farmers. And so they go after like him and his family and friends. But it's just a really well done, like as an adult, I found it just to be funny and well done, but you could totally watch it with kids because it's that stop motion animation. So sort of like think of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and those type of, like little puppets and stuff. And then the voice actors they get for this movie, it's like George Clooney, Meryl Streep, Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Jason Schwartzman, William Dafoe. And it is a super enjoyable, well done, funny movie.
Film, yeah.
It's like maybe an hour and a half, but I think it's a really underrated movie of his. It got nominated for an Oscar. So the movie came out in 2009. So in the 2010, it got nominated for Best Animated Feature. It didn't win it, but it got nominated for that and a bunch of other things as well throughout that year at all those different awards show. But so Fantastic Mr. Fox is my selection for Off the Beaten Path. Yeah. So
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, it's a good one. So, especially if you like his movies and just how he crafts his own little interesting worlds. And, I love his films, but that is probably my 3rd favorite film of his behind Royal Tenenbaums and Rushmore. So, yeah.
Put that on the watch list.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Man, so for my Off the Beaten Path, I'm going to go way off the beaten path.
Excellent.
And it's not a movie. It's actually, because I work so much.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago, I got into meditation.
Okay.
So for me, like when I'm not working, it's the only thing that helps me kind of center myself. So meditation has been kind of my off the beaten path where like someone will watch a movie to kind of cheer them up. Someone will go to the pub. I just like taking 30 minutes out of the day and just centering myself.
Okay.
And this is a journey that started about 10 years ago. I had a serious problem with over-consuming. And I met some friends along the way that really kind of guided me into kind of controlling consumption. It's easy to overconsume in my industry because samples are being thrown at us all the time. Try this, try that, take this home, try this one. And before you know it, you've had 2 bottles of wine or worse sometimes. And I think it was getting out of hand where it was so easy to go home and that's all you did.
Yeah.
And I went and saw my grandfather. This is probably the last time I went to India. Actually, it is absolutely the last time I went to India. And I spent some time with him. And I think my mom had mentioned to him that, hey, like, it's, I'm not sure if she worded it as a problem, or I'm sure she probably did. And it was maybe, now in hindsight that I think about it, I maybe did have a problem. And so he never, it was really interesting. He's probably the wisest man I've ever met. And he never told me to stop drinking. He just told me a story. And he said, I want you to meditate a few minutes a day, every day. And that's it. And it was such a 5-minute conversation. It was such a, and I tried different things. Like I'm going to maybe not drink alcohol. Maybe I'll just stick to wine, or maybe I'll do this and maybe I'll do that. And it worked for a few days, but then it was back to kind of, what I did best, I suppose. And I came home and I did what he asked me to do. And I kind of fell into this groove for a few days where I didn't really crave it. And as fate would have it, I met a couple of friends along the way. And one of them, I kind of opened up with them. I don't open up with a lot with people just because my livelihood is listening to what someone else wants, not tell them what I'm feeling. Yeah. And by the time you get home, you've got a wife and the kids, and it's time to listen again. So you do a lot of listening. And I sometimes that means that you don't get what's bothering you out. And so with this person, I really opened up, and he's said the same thing. He's like, yeah, you just bump it up to 10 minutes, then 20 minutes. By the time I got to 30, I didn't crave it anymore. And it felt like this hold that was over me was no longer over me. Now, like, I'm at that level where if I want to enjoy it, it's there. If I don't want to enjoy it, I don't feel it. And that's changed my life. And it's helped me with my family life. It's helped me with my business life for sure. And that's, to me, my biggest escape. More so than a movie, like just 30 minutes of just me time. And I get to just meditate and like try to kill my thoughts and just center my consciousness.
So was there a book or something that you utilized to kind of figure out how to do that worked best for you? That's
a really good question too. So I belong to the Sikh faith, and that's my and the it's, you know, without getting into religion, as a true Sikh, I'm supposed to see the divinity in everyone.
Okay.
So as Sikhs, we feel that everyone's created equal. There's only one universal creator, and that divinity is inside of all of us. So as a Sikh, I'm supposed to see that divinity, and the only way to do that is to kill your inner self and your ego. And that's through meditation. So the people that I met along the journey were people that either in my faith or other faiths, mostly Eastern dharmic faiths, whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, the Sikh faith, have kind of embraced meditation as a way to kill their thoughts. And I found as I started to do that, I enjoyed life a lot more. I enjoyed wine more. I tasted more things. I wasn't consumed by these millions of thoughts that are useless. You know, how often is it when someone says something rude to you that throughout the day you replay that in your head 150 times, and all you're doing, it's not going to change anything, but you're saying, oh, I'm going to do this next time, or I should have done this, or I should have done that. And it consumes you so much that you forget about the people that are important and right in front of you. And now you've ruined their day because you've let that one comment consume you so much.
Yeah.
And that part has really changed the game for me, where now I'm able to take that, compartmentalize it, and just kind of push it right off. And it feels like it's a layer of armor. A lot of time, and I love watching movies, and the reason why I didn't bring up any movies is, though I enjoy them, and I just watched with my daughter loves watching movies, and I like watching brainless movies. I want to be entertained, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't have a lot of time, and life is stressful as it is, with being a father, trying to run a business, that I just want to be. So yesterday we watched the new Eddie Murphy Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, okay.
And it was mindless, it was entertaining, and I got to spend some time with my daughter, but it was fun.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of my journey into off the beaten path is, I'll take a 30-minute meditation session over a good movie any day.
No, that's awesome. Is it something you like start your day with or end your day with, or do you have a set time?
In my prime, and this is going back to COVID, we didn't have any help, right? Because no one wanted to work, but we were considered an essential business till we had to stay open, whether we liked it or not. But the amazing part of COVID was we opened at 11 and we shut down at like 6 p.m. So it was a very short day. So I had time on my hands. My kids were home. I'd gotten up to about an hour and a half of meditation during the morning, about an hour and a half at night. And I think that's when my life was on autopilot. Like, I know in a spiritual way, like everything just made sense. I was cordial with people. People were cordial with me. If someone wasn't, I was able to just look past that and see the positive in that person and move past it. And that's really important in any sales job.
For sure.
And I'm not talking from a spiritual level anymore. I'm just talking as a salesman. At the end of the day, my job is to take a product that I bought for X and try to sell it for X plus Y. Right? I buy it and the goal is to sell it for more than what I bought it for. It's that simple. Right? But that human interaction is so important to me and to any sales job. So, having that level-mindedness and being able to break through to people even when you're frustrated. I don't care what you do for a living. If you're frustrated, you're not going to do it as well as you could if you were not frustrated. And the results that you get when you do something, especially when you do something you enjoy, and you're in a state of, when you view it from a state of contentment and a state of, I want to be doing this, not I have to be doing this, it changes your perspective. Because now I don't feel like I have to sell you that bottle of wine. I want to sell you this bottle of wine. And just that little bit of a difference from going, I have to sell you this bottle, to I want to sell you this bottle, changes your outlook on how you handle your day.
Yeah.
Because now I'm not upset if you don't buy it. I couldn't care less. But in my opinion, I feel that this is the best bottle for you. And that part just changed the game for me coming out of COVID. I think I found more, I enjoy it more. I think I was at a burnout point. I think you do something for a quarter of a century, you start only seeing the negatives and you forget why you fell in love with the profession. And now I feel like I'm back at that stage where I'm back to doing what I love. And that part, I can't stress enough how important that mental health aspect is to us as humans now, especially with the onslaught of online, which is kind of takes us away from those human interactions.
Yeah.
And I certainly see that with my kids. They order everything on an app. And that's fine. That's great. It's convenient. But that human interaction is no longer there. And I see them struggle sometimes when they're dealing with a server or when they're dealing with something where, a situation has come up where it's not ideal, whether their wrong food got delivered, the food was cold, or they would rather just not eat it and pay for it than have that conversation, that a cordial, professional, and humble conversation that, hey, this is not what I ordered. Although it looks really good, I'm happy to keep it, but it's not what I ordered. And then that part I think is really important. That communication and that human element is really important.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, and especially like even post-COVID, you've mentioned it before. You see it just across all varieties of businesses, but they're having a hard time getting workers, and there's a number of reasons for that. But you'll go into a place, and if they're short-staffed, you can just tell when they're stressed.
For sure.
But if you are, to your point, if you're used to interacting with people, and you can have some empathy, and you understand,
you can communicate. Hey, I'm short-staffed today.
Yeah, and or just be empathetic for that worker who's trying to do a good job, and they're and it can make life a little easier for everybody else.
Makes you less frustrated.
Yeah.
But having empathy for that frustrated individual actually makes your moment more enjoyable, because now you're not frustrated.
Yeah.
Because that other person is frustrated. In return, you're going, hey, man, in your mind, you're playing that, man, I feel sorry for this individual. He's going through that. And now that because you had some empathy, your experience in that shop or restaurant or whatever it is going to be better because you were patient.
Yeah.
Versus, why am I not getting service? Where is everyone? What's going on? Now you could have gotten the best bottle of wine put in your hands or the best meal put in your plate, but because you looked at it from a lens of frustration, it just won't taste as good.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great one. So that's the kind of the first practice someone has brought for Off the Beaten Path. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, and thanks again for coming on the show. I've really been looking forward to it. And I hope maybe we can do it again down the road.
This was, you got me out of the shop, which is pretty rare, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
I appreciate it as well. And thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to subscribe to us on whichever platform you listen to your podcasts. Also, I want to take a quick minute to thank Darin VanderMolen for all of his help behind the scenes. Without him, this podcast probably wouldn't even exist, and his help is greatly appreciated. Hope you have a great week, and we will look forward to seeing you the next time we go down the botanical trails. This has been a Shits and Giggles production.